A unique 4-grain recipe. Smooth up front with a little Kentucky kiss on the back. This is a bourbon for all of life's moments and celebrations. Available across the United States. We give back to those who wore the uniform and serve our communities.
The Lost Art Project, Veteran Voices with Andrew Cox. Preserving history, one veteran story at a time. Marine Corps League and Till Valhalla Project Ambassador. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast that's given a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art Project, Veteran Voices with Andrew Cox.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Project, Veterans Voices. We're going to have one heck of a show for you today. But before we get into the episode, are you enjoying the podcast? Make sure you go to the website. That's lostart.podbean.com. There's a couple ways you can help support us if you want. You can go to that website, click on that one-time donation link. Heck, you can become a patron. That's a monthly donation. You can just go get you some cool merchandise, or you can advertise right here on the podcast. Any of those will help support us, and anything is appreciated. Big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project out there doing amazing things. If you don't know anything about them, you need to go check them out. If you do know something about them, go back and check them out again. They're always doing new stuff, always doing great things, and you can always find them at tillvalhallaproject.com.
Are you a Marine veteran? Are you missing that bond you had on active duty? Then I have a place for you. Join the only congressionally chartered Marine Corps Veteran Service Organization, the Marine Corps League. Get that brother and sisterhood back in your life. Become one of the fewer, the prouder, a Marine Corps League member.
All right, here we are, man. We got our special guest here. This is Clay Williams. Clay, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, Andrew. How are you?
Oh, man, I'm fantastic. It's going to be a great time. I'm looking forward to hearing your story in detail, so it'll be a good time.
Yeah.
Well, I guess let's just start at the beginning, if you don't mind. Like, where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about that. What was that like? And then what drew you to military service?
Okay. So I grew up Dallas-Fort Worth area. I was a military brat. Both my parents were in the service, and grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It was very interesting. We attended a temple. It was called Temple Christian Academy, but it was a private school. And we did that most of our elementary school, and then and by we I mean me and my brothers.
Right.
So middle school we were homeschooled. They did a homeschool stint. My dad was having a lot of medical issues and complications. He was in the hospital quite a bit, and I think it would have been like 95. He had a massive heart attack. Well, he had his first massive heart attack in 92. And he had another massive triple bypass in 95.
Whew.
Yeah, and then a quadruple bypass in 98.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so, I mean, we were blessed at Temple Baptist Church and Temple Christian Academy and in the Homeschoolers Association that we were a part of. We had a lot of support. My mom had a lot of support during that time. And so at that time, my dad was working for IBM. He started off as security and moved his way up into software, and then started having lots of heart issues.
Yeah.
And so we ended up moving to Northern California, where my mom's family was from, so she could be closer to family, have a different type of support, family support. Community support is amazing. Sorry about that. That's my dogs.
That's all right. No big deal.
But there's nothing like the family support and the family aspect surrounding you, especially in difficult times.
Right.
During that time, my dad had a lot of pancreatic issues, pancreatitis, and a few other things that was creating a lot of medical issues.
Right.
They really, after that quadruple bypass, they were worried that he wasn't going to be around too long. So that was another reason why my mom, and he's still around today, turning 79. So
He just tricked you all. That's all.
yeah. It's been it's definitely been a tough road for him.
Yeah.
He's one of the most. He's definitely one of the strongest men I've ever met, which makes my mom equally stronger, if not stronger, to not just have to deal with all that, but to continue to carry the load of everything, kids, and still work and whatnot. So
that's a good point.
Amazing parents. No complaints. Had a great childhood. Went to high school in Modoc High School out of Alturas, California, far up northeast corner of California.
Okay.
God's country. Beautiful.
That's all mountainous through there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So fishing and hunting became a huge part of our life, very therapeutic for my dad, very healthy for us young boys. We were in scouts, we did sports, we did all the things. And we're a part of the Ducks Unlimited Association and a few other things, big into fishing and hunting. Great land to do it too. Ski resorts were fun too. So it was a different way of life going from the city of Dallas to Boonesville, Northern California. That was different. It was an adjustment for sure, because you're living in such a fast-paced life in a city.
Yeah.
You go to this very peaceful, quiet, things just move slower, and so I learned a lot of patience throughout my high school years in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's up there close to Bigfoot country as well. That's what they say.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Get into that. I don't know what's out there, but there's definitely, cryptids and stuff out there, especially out there in the area, a lot of missing. And I mean, Shasta's a big mountain, so people get stuck. Things happen anyways.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, definitely bear, Bigfoot, mountain lion country. All of the things, right?
Yeah. Oh man, that's wild.
Shot my first duck, my first goose, my first turkey, pheasant, quail.
Oh wow.
So yeah.
So all of that in that area up there, huh?
Yeah, oh yeah. No, good times. Lots of camping, quadding, dirt biking, all the things you do in the country that are different than, meet up at the coffee shop. That's not
right.
Not really what we were doing, So but it was a great time. It taught me a lot. I learned a lot. During that time, there was still my dad was still having a lot of issues, so my mom kind of still leading everything at the time. They did own a Texaco gas station for about 4 years. And then my dad's health just, completely bombed after that. And then my mom started having some medical issues as well. So it was just high school was awesome, but it was rough. Definitely had trials. But my parents were strong. They believed in the Lord. They continued to push through and persevere, and had a great high school experience. Played football, wrestling, basketball, baseball.
Oh, I did it all. Yeah, nice.
Started farming at 13, baling hay. Well, of course, started with the poop scooping, right? And then it gets into then you work your way up into the better lifestyle. But
you got to get in on the poop scooping at some point. So
absolutely. It's good for the back.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So let's see. One of my freshman year, I ended up breaking my leg in football, my tibia and fibia. And so that was, season was out. So now I was just a bum on the couch, still doing my schoolwork and everything, but, a bum on the couch for about 6 months. Had a couple surgeries, a plate and some screws and stuff. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a big hit. And more than anything, looking back on it now, my dad is, immensely struggling medically. My mom's starting to have a lot of medical issues and holding it all together. And then, still 2 active boys that are doing things. And then, and me on the couch, having to wait hand and foot on for about 6 months. So it was a difficult time, but, persevered through that and continued on. And
wow. She's a saint. That's awesome.
She really is. She's definitely the glue that has kept the family together, kept us, my dad struggles with many demons, not just physically, but severe PTSD and isolation. That's probably been my dad's biggest issue, is with the medical issues, his isolation, which is another reason why the whole family got behind me when we started with the Hero's Promise. Because it was a healing journey for all of us.
Right.
But so my parents were, involved in the community, my mom mainly, she was with the Rotary Club and did a lot of stuff in the community, very active. Dad, he was always there, but, rarely seen. And again, because of his medical issues and everything. And, as a kid, you look back, or as a kid, you think, like this bum, or, why aren't you there? You're very selfish about it. And then when you start growing up, and being as me and my dad have a lot of our stories tend to be a lot alike. It's been something for me where I've been able to look back and remember growing up in this life, and then, just wanting my dad more present, even though he couldn't be, right? But just more present when he was able to be there.
Right.
And so I made sure to tell myself, if I was ever in a position like that my kids weren't gonna, they weren't gonna have to have that, right? Like, I was gonna be present every chance that I got with them. So, so high school, I ended up doing really well. I had a 3.6 graduating out of high school. I started college for criminal justice when I was 16. I was in the Explorer program. I left the Boy Scouts. So my parents had, specific rules. If you were going to quit something, you had to get back into something of similar value, right? So I quit scouting at Life, like a very not smart move. Should have just finished up and then moved on. But got excited about what I was doing with the Explorer program, being a cadet with the police department and stuff. And at the time, I really wasn't huge on the military at 16. I was, just still trying to find myself and everything. So law enforcement was intriguing to me. Law and order. I've always enjoyed the Constitution, and then law and order comes after that. And seeing how important that is in a society, right? Like, law and order is extremely important. So getting to be a part of that was really cool, and worked my way up all the way through that. And then my senior year, I ended up. I was spending a lot of time doing ride-alongs, doing different service projects and stuff with the sheriff's department and the police department, and I was just loving it. But one thing that I realized with almost every single officer that I encountered was they had military background. And
there's a lot of military in the police force.
And at 16, 17, 18, starting to see all this, because you sit there, a lot of times you're just patrolling, right? You're just looking. It's more reactive, right? Sadly, law enforcement is more a reactive thing than a proactive. I mean, being involved in your community can only go so far. You can't police everything. There's never enough officers to do that. So you spend a lot of time driving around and talking, and you get to hear the stories of some of these men. And it always went back to, and women, and it always went back to, it started with their military career and where that led them into where they were. And it just fascinated me. And then, I started asking more questions with my mother and father, because they were both military. But, there was a good 10 years of our life where it wasn't spoken of. It wasn't, talked about. It was, my dad had a lot of issues for sure too. So it was, better to be silent in times like that instead of, having something come out that could be impactful, in a negative way.
Right.
Too. So, so started talking to my parents a little bit more about the military and everything. And neither of my brothers were interested in the military. Then I started, of course, getting into genealogy and seeing where my parents started and their family. And just, I like to have a full picture and understanding of things. It's just the way my brain works. Right.
Yeah.
So then I got to start searching, and I start looking. And my mom's mom, my grandma Sandy, she's done an incredible job on both sides of my family of documenting and doing ancestry and everything. So we come from a very long lineage. My grandma actually has a blood letter, a letter written in blood from my 6th great grandpa in the Civil War.
Wow.
Yeah. So he pulled the black bean, and he was seen by the firing squad. And it was he had 7 kids that he left at home. That Grandma Ladd had to take care of all of that after he was gone. But my grandma has I have a copy of it, but my grandma has the actual physical letter. And so we have a very long lineage all the way back to the Revolutionary War of our military service, the William Sanders Ladd, the Greens, the whole family that encompasses who I am today as a Williams, right?
Right.
And so once I got into all that, then it was like, man, it's in my blood. So now I'm definitely it's in my sights of, I really want to do law enforcement. I really want to be a part of the community in a different way, right?
Yeah.
And I got to see some great law enforcement officers, and I got to see some terrible ones, right? And so when you see that, you get to see like, okay, so there's two, and you get the same thing in the military. You have those great leaders, and then you have those crap leaders. It's just, again, it goes back to that, what I spoke about last time I was on, and just being, having your place in the wheel, being whatever cop you are. And, some people aren't meant for law enforcement. After my service time and everything, I ended up finishing up my degree in criminal justice, and, never ventured into it because of many reasons at this point. Right. But just never ended up making that priority. So it's pretty funny how much changes in 12 to 20 years, right? How much of your life just changes. So, but
it's rare that at a young age that you say, this is exactly what I'm going to do, and then you end up doing exactly that. Typically it's, hey, this is what I'm going to do, and then it changes and develops over time. I hardly ever see anybody that's like, oh yeah, this is exactly it, and that's what they end up doing. I don't see it hardly ever.
Yeah, it's rare. I would definitely say that it's rare. And that consistency part is extremely difficult. And then you get into something, and once you dive deep into it, sometimes it's like, oh no, this ain't my jam. I don't want to do this. So, so it gave me a great perspective. And then most of the guys that I met that were officers were infantry branch. So then then I started learning more and more about the infantry, and I'm like, man, if I'm going to go into the service, might as well do this. And as I'm going through high school and college, my mom's like, don't be stupid, don't. That's the dumbest MOS. Don't do. My dad's sitting back there, and he's just like, do whatever you want, but hint, hint, combat engineer is the way to go, type thing. And it's funny because my dad was a combat engineer, but when he was in Vietnam from 66 to 68. And he ended up getting tasked out and being a tunnel rat. So,
oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. brutal, right? And it's not just, I don't have too many stories from my father in that regard. He doesn't speak much about. He speaks about a couple of people and a couple of instances, and that's about it. And we're kind of jumping around here, but the stories that I have gotten from him ended up coming after I came back from Iraq, and I was struggling in an area where he was able to step in and be like, "Hey, man, pick yourself up. It sucks, but time to pick yourself up and move on."
Yeah,
we all get positions in life, right? And it's our choice to pick up that cross or not. But
it's very true.
It's a hard road, but ultimately, in the end, tends to be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's got 2 daughters, 3 sons. He comes from a family of 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My mom comes from a family of 4 and a stepsister and a stepbrother. So both big families. And anyways, so just talking with all the law enforcement officers and doing that stuff, I'm like, yeah, I really, I'm really looking at the military now, because I can go in, do a 3-year stint, come out as a 21-year-old, go into the academy and move from there. And don't get me wrong, I loved farming. I still love farming. I just left a farm in Washington before I moved out here to Missouri. So I love farming. There's nothing more satisfying than starting something from, seed and watching it blossom into life, into food,
right.
into harvest. And it's pretty amazing. And so I loved farming, but it's not what I wanted to. That's not what I wanted to do. And, a lot of people want to hang out after high school and spend the summer. And, I was motivated and was like, no, I want to do something. And then, my freshman year, 9/11 happened. So that was a big jerk for me. And then there was a few other guys that were going into the service as well. And we were going to all go in originally as like a battle buddy program that they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
But the other guys that I was going with, they were like, dude, we're not doing infantry. That's an all you thing. No thanks.
Hey, well, I don't want no part of that.
Yeah. I'm like, come on, guys. We said we were going to go in together. They're like, yeah, could be a trucker or a mechanic, but we're not doing that, dude. And so I was like, well, I guess I'm going to lone wolf it because something in me was like, if I'm going to go. And, originally I'm thinking I was going to go to Afghanistan, which I never even made it to Afghanistan. Right. But that was kind of one of the things was like, yeah, I'm going to go. I'm going to serve my time in combat like my dad. You have all these different thoughts that go through your head at that time. And then so about 3 weeks after high school graduation, I shipped off to Fort Benning, Georgia, for infantry school.
Yeah, that's a quick turnaround from graduating high school. 3 weeks later, I'm now in boot camp.
Yes, it was shocking. So it was shocking. That's kind of been my life, anyways. It's always been very abrupt and shocking. Very cold turkey type lifestyle, right? So, it was a quick turnaround. They were also like, if you leave within this 2-week mark, because I did a weekend. They had to send me to Boise, Idaho for MEPS. Did the MEPS thing and everything, and got my job and whatnot, and then within 2 weeks after that, they were like, okay, basic training, and we'll give you an extra $9,000 if you leave it within that 2-week mark. So like, wow, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Not paying attention. Right. But not paying attention to, this was 2004. So everything was really starting to kick off in Iraq and everything. And, not paying attention to the news or anything like that. I'm like, yeah, man, they're just giving me $9,000 to go 2 weeks early. But in all reality, they're paying a bunch of people $9,000 to get them in early because we were already losing people. And got to fill the ranks, So
building the force back up type of thing.
Yeah. And they expected too to see a lot of these guys that had been in for a long time do a deployment and then ETS or retire out, so it's like, oh man, because projections are usually pretty accurate, and the military, and, is very good at those types of projections, and we have to be, right? Because national security is a big deal.
Oh yeah.
So, that's like the only thing the Constitution really gives authority to the government for is, that defense corps. So, so it was a quick turnaround. Got into basic and was just really, I was blown away by the heat in Georgia. Coming from Northern California, we get 10-foot blizzards,
Yeah.
It's a
little different.
Oh man, July and bedding was terrible. August was even worse, So
it didn't get better.
No, not at all. And,
wow.
So did that and came home. I got married actually to my.
Now, was that before you went to boot camp?
Yeah, before I went. So it was just we had been dating for about 3 years, and when you're young, right? And it's again, looking back, it's one of those times where it's like, I wish I would have given it to God, right? I wish I would have surrendered, and if it had been His will, it would have been His will, right?
Right.
Me and the Lord have had our struggles in that department where I want it my way, and I'm going to do it my way, and and the consequences are always pretty dire, right? They're pretty severe, and whatnot.
It's very true. If we could all get in our mind that, hey, you just got to give it up to Him and say, hey, whatever happens. It's whatever you need, and that's tough. It's hard to do.
It is. It really is. It's extremely difficult. And honestly, it becomes, for me, it's became a fight every day, right? So every day you're fighting against yourself, your thoughts, everything around you. And then, the devil's always banging on that door. He's always trying to get you to break. I mean, he did it to our Lord and Savior. Why wouldn't He do it to me? That's just the type of being that He is, right? So, so Fort Benning was brutal. It was hot, and but came out of there super motivated. Had some great drill. We call them drill sergeants. I think you guys call them drill instructors.
Yeah.
I know quite a bit of the Marine lingo because a guy that I talked about before, Christopher Dotson, he was my platoon sergeant. He was a 16-year Marine vet, Desert Storm, so he's got a star on his CIB.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Very few people I know now that have that, right? Most of the people that that hold those are dead now, right? So pretty cool. In his time, there was only so many to get that. But anyways, he'd always say, "Stop calling me a soldier. Once a Marine, always a Marine." All of these things. And so it became a lot of fun with him. And so we great dude. Anyways, so I've learned a lot of the Marine lingo. I'm Navy and Air Force. They got me so off. I'm confused when it comes to them. But
I still have a hard time. Well, I got the Navy down pretty good, but the Air Force ranks, I got nothing on that. I wouldn't even be able to tell you. I don't know any of them really, but I got nothing.
I can say Chief Master Sergeant because that's what my grandpa retired as. But
okay,
otherwise, that's all I know. So
yeah, I know at some point in time, I think I was supposed to study that so I would know it, and I never did. So
right.
Never around them.
My little infantry book, all of them, all the different things you're supposed to learn that maybe you did at one point, but it goes away pretty quick. So.
Oh yeah. Especially if you're not using it. So.
Right. Yeah. So, met some great dudes there at basic, and probably half the platoon that I was with ended up getting sent up to Fort Lewis, Washington. Now Joint Base Lewis McChord. Mm-hmm. And that's the other thing. It's a joint base with the Air Force, so you'd think I would know a little bit more, but I don't.
That's funny. Oh man. So
and I've
you
never
did.
really had, Air Force friends either, right? So if you had an Air Force friend, they're going to be talking about their experiences and stuff. And I've just never, I mean, I know quite a few Air Force guys, but I've just never been, close
I
friends.
don't think it's not as fully recognized like it is for us. Like we use rank all the time, and that's the way it is. But for them, they all use like first names, like, "Hey Jim, how you doing?" Whatever. And I wouldn't have ever thought to even attempt to call somebody by their first name. It was always rank and last name. Nothing else.
Absolutely. And that, I think we're taught that, in the Marines and the Army is, as a respecting, but not just a respecting. I think, well, it's a respecting. And psychologically, I like to look back at things like that. Like why does the military do stuff like this? And why is it this way with us and not this way in the Navy or the Air Force? Yeah. And, I think it comes down to a different breed of person. Marines are the few and the proud, and they're, some of the first in, some of the last out. And then, you have your heavy hitting infantry, tankers, artillery on the Army side. And I mean, of course, everybody, right? Not diminishing anybody's MOS or anybody's job or anything, but, in the combat branches for sure, I think it takes a different type of person.
And you really need that structure and stuff, because when it comes down to it and you're in combat, Dick, you have to have a clear understanding of who's in charge and who is, the follower, right? And if you don't have that, that's tough. I mean, things can fall apart fairly quickly.
Absolutely. That chaos ensues, right? That, fog of war, which is real, that happens. And when those things, when people go down and people have to step up and there's that chaos that ensues, it's a difficult thing, And so, but going back to what you've been trained, right? So that muscle memory is a lifesaver. And there's a reason why, it's beat into you every second of every day for the time that you're there. So
very true. Yeah.
So I ended up going to Fort Lewis with a bunch of guys. So that was cool. So, guys that we had already been together with for months at that point was like, okay. And, getting used to Washington and the rain, that was a whole different aspect, because it's I can be cold or I can be wet, but being cold and wet, man, that's nonsense.
That's a completely different animal there, and you can have that animal. I don't want it.
Yeah, that will mentally break you. You know what I mean? It will mentally break you. And so, like, it was funny because I left basic being broke down and built back up in the way that they wanted. And then I got broke down and built back up in a whole different way with the Tomahawks at Fort Lewis. And one of those things was, rain and cold, right? I caught hypothermia that year,
Oh, wow.
Just out at the range and then from range to training to range. And it was just this, and you're just sucking and you're not, I'm going to catch, 10 minutes of sleep instead of changing my socks. And, you make mistakes and you learn and you grow and tough times.
Yeah. Sometimes those mistakes could be unforgiving,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was never a heat casualty, which is a surprise to me because I hate the heat. And I grew up, in, or at least my young adulthood in Northern California. So cold weather, I was like, man, this is nothing for me. But I learned pretty quick. It was something, again, you can be cold and you can be wet, being both of them. That's a whole different breed of animal that breaks every particle down for you. I mean, it'll play that mind trick that'll just beat you. Beat you.
Yeah, for sure. Wow. Well, now tell us a little bit, like once you got up there, you were with the Tomahawk. So talk about that and kind of what your role is and kind of go through that some, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So getting up there, I got placed in as a saw gunner right away, which was awesome. The M249 is a beautiful weapon.
Absolutely.
Lots of fun, you get tired of it. You're going to find every saw gunner, every machine gunner, every, M60, 240 Bravo, you name it. They love them, right? We love those weapon systems. But there comes a time where every single one of us curse the daylights out of that machine, right? It's heavy, it's hard, it's, all of the things that, why am I carrying all this ammo,
Yeah.
And it's a suck fest. And, but, once you get behind it and you start laying that lead, that builds you up so quick. It's a rush, and that was one of the things I really started to learn in the infantry was I started craving that rush, right? That intensity.
Right.
It's an incredibly powerful feeling, right? Feeling like you're on top of the world, that, and you're invincible and just all of the things, right? So was a saw gunner for a little bit. And then I was in a rear hatch. We were at the Yakima training station up in Yakima, Washington. And we were in a training exercise, and we ended up going. The way it was is 3 vehicles were chasing one vehicle. And so we merged off to the right. Well, whether it was the map adjustment or whatever it was, I'm not really sure what happened, but we ended up nosediving into a canal, and I got thrown out of the back of the hatch and wrapped around the 50 cal barrel, and broke my back, and don't remember too much of it happening, just little bits and pieces, but I was flown out of there to the Yakima Medical Center, and then from there transported down to the Madigan Army Medical Center after about a week in Yakima Hospital.
Okay. And
so I was 19 there, and that was a different experience because that, I had like we discussed, I had broken my leg in high school. And so, I tried to think of it kind of as like that, this too shall pass type thing, like just, stay focused, stay motivated, keep moving. And, but it's difficult when it becomes a spinal injury because it takes a whole different effect on you. And then, of course, the concussion. And so I had gotten a concussion the year before that as well, around the same time that I ended up getting hypothermia. And I had 2 concussions in high school, one playing football, one on a quad, lost control, hit a tree. But so at this point, like concussions are starting to stack up on me. And that's starting to be a whole different aspect for me, mentally. And just trying to noticing that there's a change, a cognitive change, right? And trying to understand that while also trying to come back physically. It was brutal. It was extremely difficult. And my first wife was very strong with me through that. It was difficult for me, but again, it was probably just as difficult, if not more difficult on her end, having to bathe me, once I got out of the hospital, I still, I was in a half body cast for a little over 4 months. Being
in a half body cast like that. Now, were you able to walk and those types of things? Like, what was the limitations that you had?
At that 4-month walk, I was still using a wheelchair for most of it, but I was able to walk. So physical therapy was big on lower body movement, because I'm in this cast here. So, I can move my head and that's about it. And so not a lot of movement going on more than anything, just downtime and healing time during those 4 months. And then after that 4 months is when the real physical therapy started, and really started having to work really hard to come back from that. they have this procedure. It's called like the rack, where there's weights on both ends and they kind of stretch your body. Cause after you're stuck in that cast, your muscles, your tendons, everything's all sealed up, and so they have to gradually, in essence, kind of like re-tear them. Cause of course I tore, almost every muscle from the back of my neck, down to my lumbar, in that. So, they had to like basically re-tear all of that, but in a very slow process. It was still painful. It was a slow process, and so that was a real hard time in my life. But the Tomahawks, I never felt like I wasn't part of the group. That I never felt like that I wasn't part of the team, the squad, the platoon, right? Like, the colonel came and visited me at my house a few times. They stayed engaged, they stayed focused on me, and they, that they're doing that out of, the love in their heart, because they're not getting paid to come after hours. That, they just did a 10-hour shift at, the range, and then they're coming in by and spending an hour to check up on me instead of going and, being with their family and whatnot. So, that was a huge motivator for me, was like, man, and these guys, in all reality, we know each other, but we don't know each other. You know what I mean? And so to give up that time, give up that time away from your children and your wife and your family, and just just the things that you want to do, that really hit me. That hit me hard, and motivated me. It's like, I need to. These guys care about me that much. I need to get I need to get back on the horse and get moving and get back in, with these guys that care about me, and so that was the ultimate goal. And then we came down on orders for Iraq, and I went to my PA and was like, hey man, I want to go. They're saying it's a choice for me. And so he reported up to Colonel Stone up at Madigan, the spinal surgeon, and was like, hey, this guy's wanting to go. Can we make some things happen? And at first he was like, no, absolutely not. He's not going. He's not ready. None of those things.
Right.
And, Doc Robinson, he's from New Zealand, and he worked his way up to, I think it was sergeant first class, and then he went OCS, or green to gold, and became an officer. And at that time he was a captain, and he was like, well, I'm going to make some calls and stuff. And he ended up giving me a return to duty. Whether he got the okay from Colonel Stone or not, I don't know. And I didn't ask those questions. It was, he said, you could go, but we're going to have to, you're no longer on the ground. You're not going to be a saw gunner. We're putting you in a vehicle.
Yeah.
And so, going through driver's training, the VC that was teaching us how to drive the Stryker vehicle ended up dying. You train like you fight, right? And so nobody likes to see a training accident, but the reality is that's a part of life, right? Because you have to train like you fight.
Absolutely,
and, and in doing so, sometimes there's mistakes, sometimes there's accidents, and sometimes there's just natural life that happens.
Right.
And 3-1 Victor, with Specialist Catalan, was driving and hit a tree. The tree came down and hit Fallstone in the head and killed him instantly. And
wow,
big old pine tree, and just just an act of God, just sometimes things happen. But it was a devastating hit for the Tomahawks. And this man, he was a brute too. He was 6'5", half black, half white guy. Fallstone, amazing man. Air assault, airborne, CIB, all the things. Incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly smart.
Right.
And just an amazing human being. And so it hit our platoon especially hard. the Scalper Platoon, the 3rd Platoon of Apache Company. And so that was a difficult time.
Yeah.
And
Now, was that on your workups getting ready to deploy?
yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So again, just a terrible accident. I ended up getting moved from 3rd Squad to 1st Squad for the deployment, which was Fallstone's truck, and we always said that we had our guardian angel brother watching over us, because we had 3 IEDs within 20 meters of us and 3 direct hits on us, and every single one of us survived. Which is
That's amazing.
It really is, right? Because we had that 06-07 deployment was extremely tough, and we had a lot of IEDs, we had a lot of KIAs.
And where were you exactly in that deployment?
When we first came in, the Tomahawks ended up becoming the QRF, the Quick Response Force for the greater Baghdad area.
Right.
And so Almeria, Haifa Street, Shula, Ghazalia, some very intense places, off of some major routes, right? Tampa, Irish racetrack, and so we relieved 82nd Airborne. The rest of our guys got sent up to Mosul, and after a couple months there, 520 infantry ended up getting sent down to Baqiba. And we stayed in Baghdad from July all the way through December. In December, we ended up, that's when El Sadr started all his nonsense, and everything started really getting, blowing up, and things really, intense fighting started happening down in Sadr City. So we maneuvered down there for the last 2 weeks of December. And that was a whole different type of fighting, because you're fighting guerrilla warfare in Baghdad, right?
Right.
And you have to be extremely careful because of the ROE and everything. But you still knew when you were getting ambushed by the enemy, and you were gonna take out the enemy. Where once we got to Sadr City, you would have 1,000 civilians in front of you, and in between, every now and then you'd see somebody pop up and start firing at you, and there's nothing you can do. You can't return fire. You're gonna, that's
you start hitting innocent people at that point.
Absolutely.
Just firing into crowds and stuff. So
absolutely, and so and even during that time, your immediate mental response is return fire.
Yeah.
None of us did, or anything. So thank God for that. But it definitely tested us as infantrymen and as warriors, on engagement. And it was a really intense time, because it was that way. You never knew. And I mean, even in the streets of Baghdad, you didn't really know. But once it happened, you knew where to maneuver. Right here, you didn't know, because it was very Vietnam type tactics, right? And if I was the enemy, that's exactly the tactics I would have played too.
Yeah, I mean, it was smart,
Yeah, absolutely. And I was under the impression when I went over there, and again, I'm a 19-year-old. Well, I think at that time I was 20. I was 20 because I turned 21 in Iraq, and so I'm young and naive, and I don't have any experience in the world or anything, and so it's been embedded in me that these guys are just backwoods, third world, nothings, right. And so you didn't expect the tactics that they were using. You didn't expect some of the things that they did, and then there was the whole other aspect where they were just insane at times, where There was many times where I didn't have to put down, a woman with a baby, but I watched it happen. And I know just seeing something like that happen sticks with you. It messes with you pretty hard. And so in Solder City, that was when I ended up having, I did have a major engagement. We were at the cigarette factory, and our brigade commander and sergeant major had ended up coming into the cigarette factory. And then we ended up getting this major ambush on us, mortars being walked in from, you can see them being walked in from behind us, sniper fire coming from, the left side, left center. And we're inside this corridor. And they ended up doing a full frontal assault from the rooftops. Me at the time, I had to I was driving, and I removed myself out of the driver's hole because the Mark 19 ended up jamming. And so me and my buddy Cleary, we were going back and forth, loading the Mark 19 while somebody was shooting, and, coming down, grabbing more ammo, coming back up. I would take his place on the gun. And we did that for about 3 hours. Oh, wow. And it was intense. And, Mark 19 obliterates, you know what I mean? So we were just leveling bodies, rooftops, buildings itself. And
when I hear you saying like it was 3 hours and stuff, and then you're talking Mark 19, Mark 19 ammo is fairly large, right?
Yeah.
So, you had enough of it there to be able to go 3 hours of constant, well, maybe not constant, but regular firing and right. Doing stuff like that. I mean, that's quite a bit of ammo. And then you look at everybody there, that's quite a bit of stuff there that you guys had with you.
Oh, absolutely. And, that was, again, great job on our leadership. We were coming into Solder City prepared. Yeah. Immensely prepared. And this is exactly what we were expecting. That's, not me, of course, but our leadership, right. They were absolutely expecting something like this. This is where Solder was going to take, this was his time to show, I'm going to fight back against the Americans. I'm going to be the next Iraq leader. And those things, right? So it was, grenades are getting thrown over into the courtyard. People are falling. You have our guys back in the cigarette factory laying fire all around us. They're still walking in the mortars. It was, it was my first truly intense. I mean, we've been in some small skirmishes and ambushes before that, but this was, you couldn't even be scared because it was that intense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was, you didn't have time to think about it.
No, you didn't. It was just your muscle memory kicked in. Your training kicked in, and you did what you were trained to do. And our colonel's vehicle ended up getting hit by a grenade, and they had a sniper netting over the top of the striker. Ended up catching fire, so we maneuvered. I maneuvered from the vehicle to go over to help put out the fire on the colonel's vehicle. It was it was intense. It was extremely intense. And once evac or exfil happened, we started maneuvering out. We stayed in Solder City another 2-3 days after that. Then we were called back up to Baghdad because Haifa Street had really taken off. And so we maneuvered back into Baghdad and went from fighting in Solder City to then fighting in Baghdad at Haifa Street, in the Battle of Haifa Street. And so again, we did lose one. We lost nobody in Solder City. We lost Staff Sergeant Leha in Haifa Street, an incredible leader, incredible man.
How long was that when you got back to Baghdad? Like that fight itself, how long was that one?
So once we got into Baghdad, it was, about a week. And then we started having small skirmishes on Haifa Street. And, immediately when we got back into Baghdad, we got into Camp Liberty and refit. resupplied, and moved right out into sector. And we
geez.
spent most of our time in sector. You know, we lived with the Iraqi people. We would take, you know, we'd find an empty house. Sometimes we'd take a house. Most of the time we found an empty house. But sometimes, you know, you didn't have a choice and you had to just take a house, which, you know, does a whole different thing. Yeah, I'm a very constitutionally bound guy, and I believe in freedom, and I really started to have doubts in my faith. And again, I don't know if I grew up as a Christian. I was taught the ways, done all the things, but you know, I don't think I had surrendered my heart. Actually, I know I didn't surrender my heart, but I was starting to at that point. Fear was starting to grip me. And, you know, at that point, it's you really have to surrender it. And when you do just surrender and say, okay, you know, my life is yours. And then that fear of death goes away. And now you're a scary force because you just don't care. You have a mission and you're going to accomplish that mission one way or another, because at the end of the day, I mean, you don't care if you're going home. You want to, of course, like in the back of your head, you want to go home. You're there to accomplish a mission and then go home. But so yeah, the Battle of Haifa Street, you know, we went black on ammo. We had been hit left and right by EFPs, mortars, RPGs. Sniper fire was intense. Luckily, we had the better snipers, so you know we ended up coming out of that victorious. But it was some brutal fighting, and you know, like I said earlier in the tour, we dealt with ambush, we dealt with small skirmishes, but now we were seeing the true weight of war and what it does and the casualties that it produces, and incredibly intense. And we ended up losing Staff Sergeant Leha there. My first sergeant was also wounded, First Sergeant Blue. He ended up losing his leg. And Quadit Kohler, McKee, a good buddy of mine, Aaron, they all got evacuated out. And, you know, a part of you leaves when that happens. You know, a piece of you goes. And for me, I think for me, the biggest part of that was I saw this man, my first sergeant, First Sergeant Blue, John Blue, an incredible man, incredible leader. I saw him as an invincible, he was invincible. And so to have my mind shattered in that way, this man's invincible, and now, you know, we're saying goodbye to him as he's getting lifted off, and, you know, probably not going to see him again, at least not that tour, right? He's that man's intense. He ended up doing like a 15-month recovery time, and he was back doing triathlons and
oh
you
my
know,
God,
retired as a command sergeant major, and just an incredible human being.
Good for him. Holy cow.
Yeah. But it really started, you know, again, bringing in that fear and that weight of fear. And, you know, I had some incredible leaders with me, Clapper and a few others, that they're like, look, man, don't let this weigh you down. You know, I need you, and I need you to be on your 100% game. It doesn't matter if we don't make it out of here. You know, I need you focused and staying focused. Because it, again, like I said, it hit me really hard for Sergeant Blue. Because in my eyes, this man was untouchable. You know, he was just a beast. And, you know, so to see him.
That mental aspect of that, I don't even know how to explain it, but it's so, it just messes with your psyche so much that when you look at a person, you're like, that person's invincible. That person is, you know, that's the man. And now that got taken out of the picture. Right. And now I'm like, well, now am I going to, you know, how am I going to be able to do it when he didn't do it, type of thing, you know?
Right. Well, and then, you know, again, just seeing him as the leader that he was, you know, always leading from the front, always, you know, pushing the limits, pushing to the max, making each and every one of us better in our day-to-day duties. And, and now he's gone, right? So then it's like, oh man. And I mean, thankfully I was extremely blessed to be a part of the Tomahawk Battalion and the leaders that I had. We had incredible leaders that, they would always put them before their soldiers. And that's the way it's supposed to be. But, in reality, that doesn't happen a lot. You know what I mean? Right. It's just not reality because I saw it. I saw it with the 82nd. I watched it over and over where people just weren't leading from the front. They weren't right. Doing the infantry thing and saying, follow me, so to see that and then experience a whole different thing where I have that all the way down to my squad leader, and Sergeant Clapper. I mean, that man saved my life at least 3 different times, one for sure was mentally saved me and got me out of that rut that I was starting to go into.
Yeah.
And then we, that was all of January. Last 2 weeks of January was immense firefighting down with the Battle of Haifa Street. And then we went back and, we were QRF for Baghdad still. And IEDs, wounded and killed every month. It was becoming, they all hit you and they all take a piece of you. But if you don't just know that you're expendable, right? That mindset is what got me through a lot of the time, was like knowing that it could be expended and I am expendable. And, the only way to make it through that is to focus on my training and focus on my mission and my job and do it to the best of my abilities. Right.
Yeah.
So we continued to have, KIAs and wounded. And at that time, during that time frame, we had been hit in Ghazalia, we got hit by an IED, and in Almeria, we got hit by an IED. And during that time, that would have been end of May. I think it was the first or second week of May to the end of May was Almeria, and that was the Battle of Almeria. It was kind of like another Battle of Haifa Street came in, and you're not just fighting Iraqis, you're fighting ISIS, you're fighting the Taliban, you're fighting Al Qaeda, you're fighting Syrians, Iranians, and they're not playing the same rules as we are, So our ROE is different, and and they're not playing by those rules. So you're in an unfair match. With your, at least one hand, if not both hands tied behind your back at times. True. And so then it made it extremely difficult. And so then we started to lose more people. And now house IEDs were becoming a thing. And a few months before that, there was a dump truck V-bed that came into the meat market and ended up killing like 200 civilian Iraqis. And me and my team leader at that time, Sergeant Stinson, we were attached to 2nd Platoon, and because we were starting to lose so many people, we hadn't had a new group of people come in yet, and so you weren't getting time off. You were moving from one place to another to make sure that we had enough bodies to continue to do what our mission was to do, which was being the quick response force for Baghdad and the greater Baghdad area. So Task Force Tomahawk, man. And so that was another difficult time. And we ended up losing quite a few in that with Battle of Almeria, Catalan being one of them, Ramel Catalan, great dude. Had a wonderful smile and just an amazing young man. And 1st Platoon ended up getting hit by a house IED where I think there was 6 total wounded that came out of there. Sergeant Fields, platoon sergeant, ended up losing both his legs on that one.
Oh wow!
Yeah, no, it was intense, man. And it's funny, growing up, you play Army, you play all those, you play all the games, you have that imagination situation. And then when the world, when real world hits, it's just it's a whole different,
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
whole different game.
It really puts in perspective when you think back, like it really says those were kid games, when you were growing up. Like, it puts it in that perspective a little bit more, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then the Second Battle of Bakuba broke out, and 520 needed full support. So all of 3rd Brigade from Mosul, Baghdad, all moved down into Bakuba, down at Fob Warhorse. And on the way down to Bakuba, my vehicle was struck by an IED. And yeah, so at this point, this is my 5th concussion while on deployment. And
while on deployment.
Yeah.
Holy
yeah. So every IED that hit, ended up in a concussion. This one perforated my eardrum. I took a small piece of shrapnel into my left thigh, which ended up creating some nerve damage. And it was a welcome to Bakuba. That's the way we, we laugh about it. And
it's not much of a welcome.
Right. And as you're coming in, like, everybody just wanted to light everything up after that, because we're getting tired. Here we are.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be getting ready to exfil. Our deployment's done, and now we're being told we're being extended. We don't know how long. Could be 3 months. Could be 6 months. And so we're getting fed up, and that is a whole nother scary aspect of your mentality when you get to a point like that, because the same way that fear creates anxiety, creates doubt, creates problems, that over intensity and that anger can do the same thing, right?
Oh yeah.
And it can get in the way of you doing your job, of you focusing and paying attention to the mission and stuff. And so, we were coming into Bakuba, and we're all angry, and we're all starting to have a really tough time of keeping our military bearing and sticking with our training. And again, I will say, I could have never asked or even dreamed of the leadership that I had, from basic all the way to that point, that had kept me alive and kept me going. And so we ended up, when we got into Bakuba, our entire squad got pushed over to the med center. We got taken care of there. We were supposed to have like 5 days off. Our battalion ended up getting hit out in sector. So they're like, yep, sorry guys, round it up, let's roll.
Wow.
And, yeah. So, and I'm still at this point, the head trauma is really starting to get to me. I'm having trouble focusing, no matter how hard I'm trying to. I'm getting blurred out. I'm having a lot of cognitive issues, and so now we're out in Bakuba, and we just start doing. We start doing our mission, but we're more lethal at this point. We're angry and we're more lethal, and so we ended up losing some more down in Bakuba, and more wounded, and some intense fighting. I remember there was like a whole week that I just stopped wearing my kit, my helmet, everything. I was like, man, at this point, like, I'm going to be comfortable if I go, I'm done with this. I'm done with this.
I guess that's when you get fed up and you're like, I'm over it. Like, whatever.
Yeah. And, we all got at that point because, we're supposed to be home.
Yeah.
A lot of us, we haven't talked to our family in months.
Wow.
We're living in sector. You got people going up, and we're tired of waiting for EOD at this point. So you got people that are just going up and kicking IEDs and shooting IEDs and just, or what we thought are IEDs, which some were, some weren't.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell with, even if you got thermal, because you got garbage
Mhm.
piles and,
Very true.
it truly makes you appreciate the country that I was blessed to be born in, because I don't know how most of them get up and carry on every day, to
Yeah.
be honest. And I mean, I think about it and it's like, man, and you can't be like, oh, why don't they just walk out of here, or drive out of here or whatever, you're a desert, hundreds of thousands of miles of desert, so
Yeah.
where are you going to go? And then these people are barely surviving, their nutrition sucks, they're just, and so when you start living in sector and meeting these people and dealing with them in their everyday life, you then start seeing them for who they are, which are just humans,
Right.
going through, the same thing that you're going through, just in a different way, but equally hard. Right. And so it gave me a whole different perspective. And, for a long time, I had a hatred in my heart, just because of things that had happened. Right. Positions that I put myself in and whatnot. And so we ended up getting home on September 10th, 2007, from that deployment.
And how long total was that deployment?
18 months.
18.
Yeah. That was brutal.
Oh my God.
It was brutal. Flying home and then touching the ground and being there at McCord. I at that time, I think a piece of me was gone already. So the happiness was there that I was home, but there was a good half of me was still back over there,
Oh yeah.
So it was just strange. It was weird, and difficult. But so then, you got continued on, like nothing happened, unloading Connexes, cleaning vehicles, doing all of the things. When we picked up our strikers from the Port of Olympia, there was mad protests. Thousands of people out there throwing beer bottles at us and protesting us. Oh yeah. Yeah, no, it was again. So a lot of the things I've gone through in my life, or a lot of the things my father had gone through.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, over these, I just turned 40 in November, but over my span of life, me and my dad have had a lot in common. In our military career, we had a lot in common as well. He ended up doing 18 years, and I only did a little over 6. But in my 6, I had done as much as he did. And matter of fact, that's one of the things. I got out as an E5. He was an E5. I ended up having more awards than him. So we play that game. And I think every father and son do. In that. But in the end, I know that I had nothing compared to what my father went through. We came back and we were hit hard, with close to 40 KIA, but my dad had lost, over 200 KIA. So
right.
Not the same. You know what I mean? Just not the same.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Different type of warfare too. And, that was some of the things that we would talk about is how things were similar for us, but also how they weren't, and my dad would tell me, like, I don't know what you mean by ROE. We killed anything in sight because I'm coming home.
Yeah.
And for me, again, half our tour, we had our hands tied behind our back. ROE changed so much and, against us constantly. To where it was like, man. And like in Bakuba, it got to the point where, we started dropping JDAMs. Because we were losing so many at this point, it was like, man, we're losing, right? And we were sent down here to stop this and end this. And here we're doing the same thing, and it's because the ROE and stuff. But anyways, yeah, I made it home and ended up getting divorced from my wife. Just we ended up having a stillborn before I ended up. We had a stillborn baby, and that caused a lot of issues. And then I deployed, so there was no healing.
Right after that.
There was
Wow.
yeah. So there was a lot of hatred on my side towards her, a lot of hatred on her side towards me, and just things, right? And so now, I'm home. We have young soldiers that are coming in. We're getting ready for, retrain, refit, and redeploy. And Jason Link, the guy that I talk about a lot, that started a Hero's Promise with me. We were team leaders together. I was Alpha team leader. He was Bravo team leader. And we really grew together as young men, and through the traumas of war, and then becoming young leaders together. And then we completed our EIB together, our expert infantry badge, and another my CIB, of course, I hold it at very high, but that shows that I've done my duty and done my training in combat. But the other one shows that I know my training, right? Like I've tested on it, and now I've been truly put to the test, as far as combat goes. I just happen to do it in reverse. But
yeah,
yeah,
true.
Yeah. And then in 2009, I ended up, I was going through a pre-ranger obstacle course, and I ended up falling from a high wire about 21 feet. And when I hit the ground, I immediately knew, like, oh no, not this again. Right.
Yeah.
Like, not again, man.
You landed on your back when you did that?
I landed on a rock on my back, actually.
Oh my God. Yeah, that'll do it right there.
Yeah, it was, I was transitioning down, and when I thought my legs were at a full grasp on the rope to come down, I reached over on my left and I let go of my right, and then down I went. You can have all the excuses in the book. It was raining that day. It was, it was like the third time I'd gone through the course, like, all the things. But at the end of the day, like it was just, it was an accident, Yeah. But in my head, I'm thinking, damn, again. So I'm going in and out of consciousness, and I ended up waking up, and I was back at Madigan Army Medical Center, and it felt like a dream. Like I was just, reliving, a previous life. And, at this point they were putting me through therapy. They were, doing the best they could with me. But I wasn't healing as quick. My motivation was gone. The support wasn't there. A lot of the tomahawks that had been there with me, they, PCS, DTS, all the things, right? It was a different type of leadership style that was in. I did have I still had some great leaders that checked on me and were with me up until the day that I got out. And even then they would have been, but they ended up deploying for the 2010. It was 2009, 2010 deployment back to Iraq, back to Warhorse, back to Bakaba. And so they pushed me out pretty quick, and they were like, you're not recovering from this one. You're done. You have sciatic nerve damage. You had the way I had broken my L5 was it had been hooked around my sciatic nerve, and so it was creating a lot of issues, and so I had to have surgery. And did the surgery, and after the surgery, I just, I started to really gain weight. I was not mentally there. I didn't have the motivation to push through it like I did before, and so at 24 years old, that was the end of my military career, and transitioning into the civilian world. into the VA system and still broken. And, the mental aspect of being broken was the worst part. And the spiritual for sure too.
Yeah.
And I was broken because, now I'm not just physically broken, but everything that I had planned in my life was now gone. I wasn't going to retire out of the service. I wasn't going to become, an officer, a law enforcement officer. I wasn't going to do any of the things that I had planned, specifically had planned out in my life.
Right.
So then doubt comes in, fear comes in, all of the things come in. I got up to 426 pounds, got okay with just never getting out of the wheelchair. And my son ended up coming up to me one day. And he's like, Dad, he's like 4 years old. Dad, let's play some ball. And I remember telling him no. And, I wasn't feeling good, just all of the reasons, all of the excuses.
Right.
And it broke that boy. And I knew right then and there, like I broke my promise to myself. I said
Wow.
I would never get in the position that my dad was in where I told my boy no, where I couldn't be there, that I would muster the strength to pull through it.
Right.
And so that was the moment where it was like, okay, son, let's do it. And, so we started playing catch, and I was in a chair and, we're just throwing a wiffle ball in the house and to each other. And that was kind of the big breaking point for me where it was like, I need to do this for him.
Right.
Not just for me, but my son deserves the best I can give him. And if this is the best I can give him, then I'll accept that. But in my heart, I knew that wasn't my best.
Right.
And so it just started with getting up and moving. Then it started with water aerobics and bicycling. And, next thing I know, I've dropped 200 pounds. And, God continued to put things in front of me in my life. I'd surrendered, and each day was a gift. Just having the breath of life and, not wasting it, not, valuing that, that I can do it. Growing up, my mom and dad, of course, big on that saying of mind over matter, and which is true. At least in my situation, because no matter the physical that I've been in, if I was right spiritually and mentally, I've always been able to persevere.
Right.
And so, that's how it started. And, then again, me and Link and a few others, we just talking about, a lot of us were medically retired 100%, so we're financially set, and it's like, what do we do now? It's like, is this it? And was where we were the best we were ever going to be? And all the terrible thoughts that start going through your head.
Right. Yeah. The self-doubt and, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And you start losing faith, in your creator and in your savior. For me, it was Jesus. I started losing faith, and then I started having doubts within myself. And then now you've just opened the door for the devil to come in and wreak havoc. And he did. He wreaked havoc, and I went down a very bad road. I got into drugs, got into heroin, into some things. Yeah. And, just still having that struggle of surrender, right? Surrendering and giving it all to God. Still looking for that quick fix, that quick heal, even though it had taken me years to move, to get out of that chair. I mean, so that journey started at the end of 2013, beginning of 2014.
Oh,
and I didn't stop walking with assisted devices until 2019.
Oh, wow.
So it
That's
was a
quite a while.
journey. Yeah, no, it was a terrible journey of ups and downs, and failures and successes, and all of the things in between.
Right.
While trying to be a good father, while trying to be a good son, while trying to still be a leader, I still had men, that were deploying. At this point, we're deploying to Afghanistan. Still heavily involved in the Tomahawk Battalion and the troops there, and so.
And then, now, real quick, what were you? Because you, correct me if I'm wrong, you had been medically retired at that point, but you were still working with the battalion, doing stuff, helping support them, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because you have all these young guys that are coming in and they're stoked and they're they're motivated, and but there's still that other aspect of things, and then we still have things that we can teach.
Yeah.
We still have our story that can be told, and you take it how you want it, and if you get anything from it, great. If not, thanks for listening. But also being there, and when they were deployed, helping with the families. With the Hero's Promise, one of the first healing journeys that I went on for me was Fallstone's mother, and his son, who's now like 24. And she ended up passing away a couple of years ago of kidney failure. But went through a lot with her. We bonded and healed together through our challenges and traumas and our difficult times. And she became a huge supporter of the Hero's Promise and assisting with the Hero's Promise all the way up until she passed away. And so, trying to be a good father to my two children. And at this point, I had my third child in 2017, and I had my fourth child in 2021. But so, trying to be the best that I could be for myself so I can be the very best I could be for my children. Right. And the one way that I found how to do that was just surrendering everything to the Lord. You have all those thoughts of, I could make more money, I could do more things, I could, I would get told, what are you doing? Why are you wasting all this time? And to me, it wasn't wasted time. Not only was I healing, but the impacts that I was making out of that, and then other people's healing journeys that, I got to be a part of with that. And it was when I truly realized, where God had called me. And because of my story, my testimony, and everything that I had an audience. And with that audience, we were able to, come together and, form a unit that we called the Hero's Promise, and just started, making some major impacts in people's lives, and doing some incredible things in our own lives and in the community, and then statewide, and it just continued to grow, and it goes back to that thought in my head with my son is, you need to take that step. You just need to get up. You just need to get up, take the step. Stop being a crybaby. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop having pity. And again, part of that was Tomahawk brothers that had it far, far worse than me. And they'll tell you the opposite, very humble men, but, far, far worse than me. And knowing that, they're doing it, you can do it too. Saddle up, ruck up, move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
Wow.
Yeah. So,
well, if you don't mind, can you talk a little bit about A Hero's Promise, like how you got started and involved in that a little bit?
Yeah. So, so it all just started from me and Link, 3 a.m. phone calls of, purpose and God, and, that we didn't go through what we had gone through just for that to be it, that God was molding us. And Jay was a lot better at this than I am. And I've grown, right? But he was a lot better at seeing the Lord. And I was more prideful and arrogant. And so it took me a little.
That does happen. That does happen. It
Yeah.
happens to a lot of us. So.
Absolutely. And, so it just started, as us just talking with each other. And then it was like, hey man, we're seeing so many suicides and everything. Why don't we create like a call roster, like what we had in the service, and we just do battle buddy checks. And that's kind of how it just started, was getting together, just talking with people, and then more people joining up and being a part of other organizations that we were able to be a part of to help out in their programs and learn from the older generation, especially, and how they made it through, these Korean War vets, these World War II vets, the Vietnam vets, but definitely the Korean and World War II vets seemed to make more of an impact with me, because, here I am every other day feeling sorry for myself. And then these amazing men are like, they're telling their story, and it's like, wow, how, and most of them, it was, it was Jesus. Sometimes it was their family. But you would always hear each of them say, man, we just kept moving, right? Just like they taught us in the service, we just keep moving, man.
Yeah. And
that impacted me, where it was like, okay, Lord, I'll suck it up, and I'll take one step each day. I'll continue to move forward. And you just push me where you want me to be. And, again, things would just happen. We'd wake up and, we'd get a call about something, and then we would just go either show up or assist however we needed to. Sometimes there was just a phone call to people. Sometimes that phone call, would save a life, just knowing that somebody is on the other end. And, like I would tell, and me and Link were the same way. He was on the East Coast, I was on the West Coast, and we're like, hey man, we got it covered. We got two guys down, and one in Oklahoma and one in Texas. And, we can be anywhere within 8 hours driving, so we'll be there, you name it. And we'll go. And that's kind of how it started, was just showing up, just being there. And then as you start to get more involved in the community as a whole, you start seeing needs and aspects where, where there's needs in the family dynamic with active duty soldiers, right? And their children that, often get, you're not there to replace those parents or anything by any means. You just become an extra support system for them, right? And then we really started noticing the need with our seniors, and going to funerals where they didn't have family,
right.
And so then it was like, well, how do we catch it before it's death, right? So then we started visiting the senior centers, and we started doing that, and just being letting the Lord shine through us and be a light in people's lives around us, even if it was just listening, even if there was this old guy Rick back in Yelm, Washington. I would go and I would read to him, every other week. I would just go sit and I would read the Bible with him, and he could no longer speak, and he liked to hear it out loud. And 3 hours, 3 to 5 hours a month. Once you start, you formulate people, clients, whatever you want to call them, for us, it's relationship based. So they become our brothers and sisters. Right. And so, that creates a whole nother barrier that you don't expect, because now you have a lot of people wanting your time, and you have to figure out how to navigate that time along with your own mental health, your own spirituality, your own, traumas that you still got to get through on top of your families and so on. And, you know, we would get bogged down occasionally from things like that. And then, you know, it was, let's refocus, let's, you know, surrender. And, you know, the Lord's going to make it happen. We just need to just keep moving.
Yeah.
And so it's just grown into something that I could have never, again, you know, when it all started, it was just guys trying to survive. In all reality, survive the peace, which is one of the other organizations that a Tomahawk brother created. And in that survive the peace, you know, that was our membership aspect, where, you know, that's where we would do battle buddy checks, and that's where we would do meet and greets. Matter of fact, the Tomahawks still meet up every single month out in Puyallup, Washington. We again, with not just the training and everything that we went through, but then the deployments that we went through, created a bond that there's nothing like it, right? Again, I have brothers, and I don't have a bond with my brothers the way I do with, you know, the men from the Tomahawk Battalion. Jay, my third daughter, her middle name is Maddie, and she's named after Jason. His middle name's Matthew, and we came up with Maddie.
Nice.
And, you know, during that time that she was being born, I was homeless at the time. On my own choice, I was choosing to, you know, not make the greatest decisions, not surrender, still wanted to hold on to a piece of that humanity. And, you know, like, I got this, you know, and in that infantry mind of mine, it is like, you know, ruck up, you got this. And that's where I really started to learn, like, man, you don't got nothing. Everything you've been through, everything you've done has been by the grace of God, man. And my Savior Jesus lifting me up and carrying me through almost every day. And so it really started to humble me in that, man, I am, in all reality, I am worthless as who I think I am, right? And so, you know, that surrender, it morphed my life. It changed my life into who I am today. And all of the struggles and continued struggles. I have a lot of medical issues. I've lost 22 teeth from that chlorine bomb. I have had, you know, 7 different surgeries on my jaw because I've had to have restructuring of my jaw and just different. Yeah. And, you know, at this point I've had, you know, 25 total concussions. So the TBI aspect, the traumatic brain injury,
that's tough.
It really is. And people don't realize how tough it really is. Learning how to move. Learning how to rethink. Difficult. The traumatic brain injury has definitely been one of the hardest things to get through, especially on a daily basis, right? So, you know, and again, that's where the grace of God and Jesus, my Savior, he's brought me into a position where, my mind continues to heal because of the day in, day out things that I'm doing. And it gets tough at times. It can bog you down at times. I know a lot of my brothers, one of the things that I didn't really get to speak on at this last podcast that we did together was how TBI truly affects your cognitive abilities and your mindset. And I'm not diminishing PTSD at all. I think, PTSD is a terrible thing as well. I don't take ownership of PTSD. I don't even like to take ownership of TBI. But I have to know I have to know my issue, right? I have to know my enemy
Right.
in order to beat it. And so for me, seeing things, nightmares, I think more than anything was the VA system of providing me lots of pills, having me stupefied, and just creating a whole nother barrier for me. And I can only speak for me personally, right?
And that really does depend on where you are, what doctors there are. I mean, the location is a huge play factor and all that. But overall, I would say that the VA has I don't know, I guess they're doing better now, but has in the past, the prescribing medication was the big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so funny story. I'd been on medication for a really long time.
Yeah.
And in 2019, I ended up stopping all medication. It was like, nope, I'm surrendering to the Lord, and I'm making a stand, and I'm truly giving it to God. And I had my behavioral health and mental health doctors like, hey, dude, absolutely not. You can't do this. And it's like, well, I have to have my faith, right? And my faith means that He's going to get me through it, no matter how hard, no matter how difficult. And again, in an intense, extreme struggle, but at the end of the day, getting off any type of alcohol, getting off any type of drugs, and then getting off any of the pharmaceutical drugs as well. I'd been taking morphine and methadone at that point for 7-8 years.
Oh wow, it's a long time.
Yeah. Well, and then using it as a crutch, right? That's what it really comes down to, is not needing it. And then it becomes an addiction, and you want it because it does make you feel better at that moment, at that time, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And getting on the bike and just leaning on the Lord to push those pedals for me, and to just keep me moving. Incredibly difficult. And so, my physical aspects of life have been difficult. But I think the mental aspect has always been far more difficult. And then the spirituality aspect, I think, has been the most difficult, because that's not, once you set your mind and you correct that mindset and you focus on that mindset, and you're using that mindset every day, it becomes habit, right? Whereas your spirituality, man, that is an everyday thing, because something new every day is being thrown at you.
Oh
right? And so every day your faith is getting shaken, and sometimes even broken. And not that I haven't relapsed, right? Like that absolutely happened. Not recently, praise the Lord. Again, that comes also to, your support, because we never did anything alone. I wasn't a Navy SEAL. I wasn't a Delta operator. I was just a grunt, and the grunt, we're Vikings and the shield wall. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're Spartans in the shield wall. We work as a unit, as a team. And I think that's been one of the most difficult aspects of getting out, was not having that shield wall, and being alone. And so no longer can I trust myself. No longer can I have faith in myself or in the people next to me. Now I have to truly have that faith with Jesus, and difficult.
Yeah, to say the least. And that for many veterans is probably one of the hardest things, is just not having that a support structure, if you will, from your fellow soldiers, veterans, whatever you want to say. But that's a tough spot to be in, and everybody goes through it to a certain degree once you get out. Whether you just did 4 years or whether you did an entire career, everyone goes through it at some point. Maybe not as drastic, but to a certain degree.
Absolutely, no, absolutely, and I'll never diminish anybody's traumas, right? Because now you're going to act like God because you don't see their heart, and you don't know what they're doing, and you don't know their struggles that they go through. Some of the men that have committed suicide were men that it would have never crossed your mind.
Yeah.
They're too strong. They're too motivated. They're too badass, whatever it is, right? Like it would never happen to them. And then it does. And then it's like, wow. And so that's when, like for A Hero's Promise, we started reaching out to everybody. And, one of the big aspects that, I ended up noticing for me personally, and I was dealing with, retired Major Alan Acosta and other colonels and other people that they don't get that same type of support, right? I always had somebody reaching down to pick me up. But when you're ahead, when you're a leader like that, who's there picking them up?
Yeah.
And especially when you get out, right? There's nobody.
Yeah, very true.
And so, that was when it was like, look, we all suffer. We all have these issues. What can we do to start, being that hand up and being that support system? And again, it just goes back to being present, just being there, just being willing to, pick up the phone, call somebody, send out a text message, and you get that back. You're fine, or it's okay, or I'm going to be okay, or, whatever. And then you start digging in, right? Like, nah, man, I'm not going to let you, because life ain't that good. I mean, it is. Life is great, right? Every breath that we get is great. But in reality, life is chaotic and hard and difficult. And, it's a struggle. And you never know. You don't see that person's heart. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know the struggles that they're having. And
that's something that I saw it. I can't remember if it was today, yesterday, something. But when you ask somebody, like when you first see them, hey, how you doing? Right? Everyone's, no matter how you're feeling, is, oh yeah, I'm good. How are you? That's your first answer, no matter what. But we as leaders, we need to recognize that that's going to happen, and we need to be able to ask further questions and say, oh, well, how about this? What about this? And you start asking probing questions, and eventually, they're going to come out and say something. If they are feeling bad, you're going to start to recognize it. You just got to dig a little bit.
Absolutely. And, again, that takes time, right? And that takes dedication, and that takes, again, I have my own issues with the VA, but the VA is a good system, right? Ultimately, I think in a giant wheel that the VA is, you're going to have problems, right? And and each generation of warfighter has different needs, right? They have different needs and different ways of healing and different support. What worked for Vietnam vets, just doesn't work for,
very true.
My generation. And you really start to recognize that. And I guarantee, I don't know it for a fact, but I'm going to say 99%. It was the same way for the Vietnam Korean War vets, and it was the same way for the Korean, and we're all, we all have our own, traumas that we have to go through.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the things that me and my dad are always talking about is, his was never worse than mine. Mine was never worse than him. Trauma's trauma. And it's just different, and it's different for each individual.
Yeah.
I know guys that, have been hit just as many times. I know I got guys that have been blown up 6 times in that deployment, and and they went through the same struggles as me. I know guys that had been blown up 6 times and went a whole different route. And at the end of the day, I think the VA is learning, right, and they're trying to adapt. But the system, I believe, is always going to be a 30-year, 40-year generation behind, right? Because
Unfortunately, yeah.
Now we're going to learn this, and we're going to, okay, now we know these needs, and we're going to work on these needs. Now, how do we now here's a new generation, and their needs are completely different. What do we do?
Right. And then they're learning stuff medically as well, right? So every day that we move along, they're learning something new, and they're like, oh, well, we can apply that now,
Right.
And so they're applying new techniques or new medicines or whatever.
Absolutely. And it's a process, right? Just like everything in life, it's all a process.
Very true.
What I'd like to see more out of my generation, and it's difficult, right? Because life is difficult. Life is chaotic and hard. And where do you get the time and everything? But what I would definitely like to see my generation do is stand up more and be a part of, an organization that does make impacts. And, maybe the VA is that organization that you're a part of that makes impacts.
Yeah.
It's an ever evolving thing, just like the military, right? So, and I think that's what, again, makes military service members so unique, is our adaptability, our perseverance, and then our duty and loyalty, right?
Very true.
Not just within our ranks, but within the country as a whole. And, politics are great and all if that's your realm of getting, involved with something, do that, do whatever, your calling and your passion is. But just know that there are so many great organizations. I know, like with you, with the Marine Corps League, I have the buddy that I was talking to you about, he's a part of the Marine Corps League, and it's been, and he's part of Heroes Promise too, but where he has really found relief and support is in that Marine Corps League.
Right.
And so, get involved with things, because you never know, again, when you're going to be a hero in somebody's life. You never know. You're never going to know those impacts. Sometimes you will, sometimes you don't. And that's where, for me, I trust in the Lord to put me in the places that I need to be. And I just do it to the best of my abilities. And
that's awesome. I love it, man. I like what you're doing. I'm really glad that I got to hear your whole story. So thanks for sharing that. I know sometimes it's not necessarily an easy go to share the whole story, but thanks for doing it. Absolutely.
Well, everybody's story can impact somebody else. And, I think it's extremely important that, our stories be told, because we do seclude, because we do try to because we get prideful and arrogant, and we try to do it on our own. It's nice to see somebody's story and relate to that. And then, maybe a relationship built out of that, or, because of that, a different relationship is built. From being broken mentally, physically, spiritually out of the service, and then into drug addiction and alcoholism, and then into, homelessness. And, I ended up becoming a Thurston County Cemetery Commissioner in the state of Washington. I did that for 5 years before I moved out here to Missouri. And just going one foot in front of the other, and continuing forward movement. It's not, I'd love to sit here and say that it's been easy. It hasn't. It's been incredibly difficult.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. I wish sometimes that it was just incredibly easy, but things that you get that are super easy, not as fulfilling sometimes. So, sometimes the struggle makes it even better in the end.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Everything, there's been plenty of easy things in my life that just came naturally to me that were awesome and fulfilling and everything. Those are not part of my story. You know what I mean? It's always those mountains that I had to climb. I don't, that downslide where, you make it to the top and then you just coast down the backside, on a sled or something, that's not the story that makes you, right. What makes you is that clawing, that relentless fight, that perseverance. That is what truly creates, and we all have them. We all have our traumas in life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to say anybody's life is simple. I don't believe that. And I think that's kind of the point of life, right? Is kind of like the way the military, it breaks you down to rebuild you in a manner that's going to be effective.
Right.
And I think the Lord does that for us. And so every concussion, every, asthma attack, every failure I've had, every trauma, every downfall, every hard point has made me into the man that I am today. And talking to my son all the time about it, like I wouldn't give it up. Not one bit of it. And one of the reasons is because I did make it through. I did. I made it. And that's a different type of success. To know that you've survived hell and you've owned it. You've taken it, you've thrown it on the back, and you've just continued to move forward. It's incredibly difficult, and it's a continual fight every day, and I think that goes with anybody, even our children. They have their own battles and their own. I know from my son, I know he's incredibly proud of me, and and my daughters, and they look up to me and everything. But they've also seen the struggle, and they've seen the cruelty of the world, and I think it's going to only make them better. As much as I want to shield them from that, it's reality, it's life, and I keep looking back to that little 4-year-old that looked at me with heartbreak, and my Savior, my Redeemer, without a doubt, is the eye of the prize. But that little boy and those little girls, they give me motivation and to continue to persevere.
I love it. Shoot, man. Thanks for coming on and doing this. Seriously. I always get something out of it every time you come on. So it's been good so far. Can't complain.
I appreciate it. I really appreciate you giving me a platform and being able to talk about the organization and, tell my story and to be a part of, again, it goes back to, I think, what all of us in the military loved when we were in is being a part of something bigger than ourselves. Yeah. And, absolutely. Just being a hero in somebody's life, whether it's, your grandma that you're taking care of, it doesn't have to be something so extravagant, to be a hero. And that's another aspect of my story that I try to, emphasize to people is it doesn't matter how many people you affect, right? But you're put in people's lives to make those positive impacts. So, be cognizant of that, be mindful of that, and really pay attention to that, because you never know whose life you save. Yeah, very true. Yeah, absolutely. Well, aheroespromise.org. That's where people should go if they want to help out in any way or need to talk, need help. That's a place to go. aheroespromise.org. All right. Now, I always do these rapid fire questions for the when I have a veteran story on. Would you be willing to do this? Absolutely. All right, here we go. What is your proudest military moment? Well, so I guess it's probably going to be two, right? It's probably going to be my CIB and my EIB, my combat infantry badge and my expert infantry badge. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. What is your most,
Yeah. What is your most embarrassing military moment?
Okay. So there we were on patrol, and we were staged up, getting ready to roll out. We had a we had a raid that we were going to hit, and it'd been, it was supposed to be, we were supposed to be leaving in like 20 minutes. It ended up taking like 6 hours before we ended up leaving. So of course, what do? I was always known to be that guy that's going to catch some Z's when he's able to. And so I caught some Z's, and at that time we weren't in BDUs or deserts anymore. We were in ACU, and so we were in a gravel parking lot, and everybody ended up covering me all but my head in the gravel. And I got some pictures of it. I'll have to show you sometime. But very embarrassing. Very caught me sleeping.
Wow, that's impressive that you slept through that. I mean, that shows how tired you really were, though.
Yeah. I think it was like 48 hours of no sleep at that point. So when I zonked, I was done. I was KO'd.
Yeah. Wow. All right. If you could be one military leader for a day, who would that be?
Whew. Wow. It would probably be my squad leader. The two that I had, Staff Sergeant Clapper and Staff Sergeant Bell. Only to see their side, to understand what they were going through at the times that they saved my life. That'd be incredible.
Yeah. I like that. That's a really great answer. All right. In the zombie apocalypse, what will be your weapon of choice, and what anthem will be playing?
Yeah. Okay. Well, the tomahawk would absolutely be my weapon of choice.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we get trained in and get proficient in. And so, the tomahawk's got a great story with that, especially, with the Korean War, fixed bayonets. No way. We're going in tomahawk style. So, it'd definitely be the tomahawks, and probably dust in the wind.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. I like it. All right. What animal best describes your time in service?
Oh, man. Let's see. That's funny. So, I want to say like Wolverine or something, but honestly, It's probably going to be like a raccoon.
Oh, hey, okay. Yeah. I like that. All right. Knowing what you know now, knowing what you know now, would you do it all over again?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, you kind of already answered that a second ago, but I agree with you. The struggles you go through makes you who you are today. So,
absolutely.
All right. I always give words of wisdom. Time for you to kind of give people your thoughts or whatever you want to leave the listeners with.
So, it would be Jesus. Again, the greatest thing I ever did was surrender to Jesus. And he always takes care of me. He provides for me. And again, very difficult. And just living completely off that faith is extremely difficult. But I would also say that I heard a song today, and I can't remember who it's by, but there was a part in there that really stuck out to me, and I wanted to bring it up tonight. And it's just a breath in my lungs and a story to hold. That really hit me today. Gosh, and I'm trying to remember who the singer is. He's a country singer, but I can't remember exactly the name of the song. Let me see if I can. Okay. The song is "God Don't Owe Me Nothing" by Grit and Soul. And
okay.
But when I heard that song today, I ended up going, I played it a couple of times, and that sentence there, just a breath in my lungs and a story to hold, man, that really impacted me, because that breath is the first thing that I thank God for in the morning. And again, I have immense lung and breathing issues. And so that breath's important for all of us, right? But It definitely holds a different meaning for me. But out of that breath is the story that is me, that has come out of that. And we all have those. And that's, again, why I think it's amazing that you do what you do.
I love doing it. I love hearing stories. I love talking to people. Keeps me grounded and lets me know when I'm screwing up, and I can learn lessons. So it's all good,
Amen.
Yeah. Well, shoot, man, thanks for coming on and doing this. Truly appreciate it. I'll end this one the same way I always do, but to all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, need help, anything like that, don't forget the VA has some great resources. You can always dial 988, press option 1. You can always text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net and click on the chat icon. Any of those options will put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life lost is one too many. I care about you. I know Clay cares about you. The whole veteran community cares about you. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, reach out to the buddies you serve with. Ask them how they're doing. If they need that helping hand, please give it to them. All right, Clay, one last time, thank you very much. A Heroes. Oh, shoot. What was it? Sorry. I got to pull it.
AHeroesPromise.org. Check us out on Facebook.
There you go. I was going to pull it back up. AHeroesPromise.org. I totally screwed that one up. I apologize.
You're good. You're good, Andrew. I appreciate it.
Yeah, but thanks for coming on and doing it, man. Much appreciated. And to all the listeners out there, stay motivated. Change your socks.
No more 22. On to the journey and finish the fight.